Before we get started with the review, I just want to let you know there is spoilers in this review, so if you haven't seen the movie, don't watch the video. Go watch the movie if you haven't seen it yet, and then come back. This review will be waiting for you. But let's get right into it. It's finally here, delay after delay, the sequel to 2017's hit Wonder Woman film, Wonder Woman 84. I just finished watching it on HBO Max, which you guys should do using the free trial if none of you have used it yet. But without further ado, let's just get right into my quick review of Wonder Woman 84. Starting off with the good of this movie, I'm just going to flat out say I think the movie is good. I think it's a pretty decent movie all around. While I don't think it is better than the original 2017 release, but I do say I enjoy this one more. I think the good things about this movie are Gal Gadot's performance as Wonder Woman is perfect as always. She just conveys Wonder Woman so well. She just makes power look so easy, and it's really good seeing her perform in the role. Diana as a character in this movie, she goes through a lot of things, as you can see with her dealing with the death of losing Steve Trevor, how she doesn't want to open up back to anyone again, how she's kind of hiding what she's doing as Wonder Woman while simultaneously still saving people. As you get in the first mall scene, she uses her headband as a boomerang to take out all the security cameras. It's just a nice little detail which kind of fits in with the continuity of the movies that happen after this world and the films that come after it, like Justice League and Batman v Superman. And in those movies, you learn that before those movies, she was just a ghost. She wasn't doing anything. She wasn't saving people. But you get a nice touch on how that works in this movie, where before she even starts fighting the guy, she takes out all the cameras to make sure there's no evidence of her being there. So I really just do like Diana in this movie. I think she's better here in her first movie. Characters-wise, action, there is a lot less action due to the fact that she is losing her powers from the wish that was granted from Maxwell Lord. Speaking of Maxwell Lord, what a fantastic villain. I don't know if it's just me or if anyone else will share this opinion, but Pedro Pascal is just so good in this role, and I wish we got to see more of him. Granted, it does kind of suck how you don't really see what happens to him after he does his whole wish scheme across the world. You don't see, he just ends up with his son. But I find Maxwell relatable. You can see he's just been bullied pretty much his whole life. That's what I took away from it. And he's just trying to prove to his son that he can be someone, that he's not a loser like the investor called them. You can see it, he's tearing up when he's on the bridge of tearing up when he's telling his son that he's not a loser. Just wait, you'll see. He's just trying to make all these promises to his son to prove that he is a person worth being loved. Now, Maxwell's plan, it is pretty much generic. I just want to be a businessman and own the world. But I think the way he does it is that he's such a villain that he's just very charismatic, in my opinion. I think that's due to Pedro Pascal just killing it in the role, because he really just does bring so much passion and emotion to this character. And he's just he's really charming. You can see how he charms Barbara with the life is good, but it could be better. I thought that was a really good moment. I just think this is one of my favorite DCEU villains, and there's not a lot of good villains. You guys know, I think Aquaman's villain sucks, Steppenwolf sucks, Ares from Wonder Woman is not that good, but I'm so glad that they did a good villain with Maxwell Lord, and Pedro Pascal, he's one of the highlights of this movie. Now, another thing that I do think they did good with this movie is how they handled bringing Steve Trevor back. But they didn't really do a lot of explaining on it, and I'll touch more on that in the bad when I get to some other things. But Steve Trevor, he's really good in this movie. You can see how the roles have been reversed from the first movie, where Diana was actually the fish out of water in this 1918 World War I world, and now you have this one in 1984. This is a man out of time. He's just walking around, he looks at a trash can and thinks it's art. I really like this whole thing with him being a fish out of water in the new world. You can see him, he's in awe of just the space museum, just astronauts, rocket ships, and modern flight planes. But Steve doesn't really do much in this movie. I'll touch more on that when I get into bad. I'm going to say this good, but I like Steve Trevor in this movie. Chris Pine, he's good as Steve, and I think the charisma between him and Diana is really good as always. Now, the last thing, a couple of things I'm going to talk about before we move into the bad, is just some quick things. I really like the vibe of this movie. Everything's very bright, colorful, very retro. Even the soundtrack has a lot of retro aspects of it, but they still use the classic soundtrack. They just handle the 1980s vibe really well. And a lot of movies struggle with that. They just say it's 1980s, but you don't really feel like the 80s, like the soundtrack, the visuals, just the way the characters just act and speak. It doesn't really feel like 90s, but I think this movie really handles that well. Also, a good thing, uh, uh, well, why am I going to say spoilers? You guys probably already seen the movie if you're watching it. Surprise appearance by Linda Carter. Oh, I actually didn't know who she was when the credits said she was in the movie. I kind of feel bad for that. I'm sorry, but she's the original Wonder Woman, and it makes sense for her to be here, and they use her as the goddess lady. Only a few bad things come to mind when I think about this movie, and one of them being is the severe lack of action. This movie, off the top of my head, has like three action scenes. You have the one in the mall where she apprehends the criminals. You have this second one in Cairo, and then you have the third one, which is literally the final battle against Cheetah and Maxwell Lord. Like, I get maybe they were trying to go for more of a character-driven movie, which I'm fine with. I love character-driven movies, but with the Wonder Woman movie, like its predecessor, like the the action scenes were just so good in that movie, and the action was grand scale too. Like she's invading a whole town with soldiers, and there's Nazis in it. She's taking out clock towers. She's taking out entire rooms of it. In this movie, the fights are not only scarce, but they're really small scale. Like the first fight in the mall literally takes place in just one section of a mall, and it's really weird and like it's really small. And then the second one, it's just like some random strip of highway desert, and it barely lasts for more than like 5 minutes off the top of my head, if I can remember. And the third one, it's just a random satellite array. Like the action in this movie, it's not bad. It's just kind of lame. Four action scenes. I just remembered one, the one in the White House, but that was barely an action scene. Yeah, I just think they could have done more with the action that this had. Like this movie is 2 hours and 30 minutes. Like that's a lot of time to just sprinkle in more action scenes, and I just wish they kind of would have did more with that. I think the third thing, or the second thing this movie has problems with is just explaining things. Like, what has Diana been doing between the World War One and where we are now? Did she just sit World War Two out? Why is Kristen Wiig, Barbara, why is she turning into Cheetah? Like she's turning more like Cheetah and like everyone's looking at her. Is that just all like included in her wish? Why is Maxwell Lord like when is enough for him? Why does he just want to become the world's biggest businessman? What is the relationship with his son? The wishing stone isn't explained all that much, and the armor, like the big golden armor, that's explained for like one little scene and one little flashback. So I think this movie like it had so much time, but like it didn't explain anything. Like where did Diana learn to make invisible jet, to make the jet invisible? Like I know she said she was that's what Zeus did, but when did we learn she was doing that? Like that could have came in handy certain parts of the movie. I just this movie with so much time it has, like not a lot of stuff is explained. Now the last thing that I can really remember having a problem with this movie is the pacing. Like this movie is 2 hours and 30 minutes long, but the pacing is really slow. Like you have an action scene in the mall, and then it's just Diana and Steve walking around doing nothing for 70 minutes. Like it's interesting stuff that happens, but the pacing is really slow, and oftentimes it just really jump starts real quick, and you're never really knowing like what is the villain up to, what are our characters doing, where are they going. It's just like the action scenes are so far apart. It's just you're kind of not getting bored. It's just you're just kind of wishing something will happen. Like for me, the dialogue is good. All the stuff that they're going through is fine. It's just I was hoping for more action, and everyone's hopes were, I guess, kind of high due to this movie like being delayed by so much. But just the pacing, like it feels like a long movie. Like it feels like 30 minutes of this movie could be chopped off, and I think that's kind of bad. But I just the pacing is really bad, man. But with all that done and dandy, time to get into my final verdict and review of this movie. Wonder Woman 84 is good. I think it lives up to the original, but I don't think it outclasses it. I definitely enjoy it. I have way more fun watching this movie than the first one, but the first one just has better action, but this one it's got things better in it too. I do think I'd rather watch this one than the other one if I'm just trying to get a laugh and watch a good movie with my friends, but this movie, it is not better than the first one. It's not better. I like it more, but objectively, it is not better than the first one. But my final review of this movie, my ranking, I'm gonna give Wonder Woman 84 an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching my review of Wonder Woman 84. If you disagreed, or maybe even if you did agree with something I said, make sure to leave a like and comment down below just to give your opinions. Do you think this movie was great or do you think it was awful? I'd love to hear anything. Make sure you go check out Sterling's channel. As always, his link will be in description. But with that being said, guys, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.